I'm going to call out those who need to be called out. How did you afford a habit like that?
Working in technology.
Well, shit. What am I going to do with that? So it was identity theft.
Technically, yeah.
Not technically, it was identity theft.
Yeah. The places I do business with now don't know this stuff. Clearly, you're wanting to call me out on this.
I am calling you out.
You're picking a lot of things apart. And
well, it's very easy to pick it. This did not go the way we thought it'd go.
Clearly.
Shit. This feels pretty good. It's not really me thinking that you're not being honest with me. I know you're not.
You're still taking this out of context. It's like
I'm not.
It's the
I'm
charges
not.
that you. It's not like fraud.
I think the problem is that you've not sat down and got your story together. That's right. I am that sumbitch. We prepare for everything. I'm Brett Johnson, former United States Most Wanted cybercriminal. The United States Secret Service called me the original internet godfather. Why? Well, because I am that guy. You know what? In today's world, criminals come in all shapes and sizes, but they all have one thing in common. They all have criminal thoughts. On today's episode, we're inviting in Joshua Moses to talk to us. He's a former black hat hacker responsible for the breaches some of the breaches at PayPal, at US Bank, at Walgreens, and more. We're going to talk to him. Now, why am I talking to Joshua? Well, I'll tell you why I'm talking to Joshua. I'm talking to Joshua because it turns out that he was doing some of this stuff when I was doing some of this stuff. So I think that we will have a very good, informative, entertaining conversation. And I really believe, here's the thing, I truly believe this. I truly believe that the listeners and my viewers on the YouTube channel will walk away with a new understanding of the criminal mindset.
A bill filed in Colorado aims to break the cycle of incarceration by giving people up to $3,000 upon release from prison. James Coleman, a Democrat, is proposing a state bill to allocate up to $3,000 per person upon release for a one-year period. This would be a dramatic change to how Colorado currently treats people who exit its state prisons. Most only receive a one-time debit card with $100.
Here's the thing. I served federal time, 7.5 years in federal prison. When you're released from federal prison, they give you a debit card with whatever money that you had on your account at that point in time, and they transport you to whatever halfway house they're going to send you to. They give you a class before you leave, an exit class. And in this class, they sit you down and they tell you, hey, find yourself a job and find you something you'll care about, and you probably won't recidivate. Now, here's the truth of the matter. A former felon trying to get a job is almost an impossibility. And that a lot of that depends on the type of crime that you're committing. They tell you, hey, if nothing else, you can sell cars at the end of the day. Well, you can if you're a drug dealer. You can't if you're the guy that steals everyone's information, steals money, hacks into computers, everything else like that. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I know this. I know that you're released from prison with the exact same tools with which you enter. I also know that in the United States that prison is not about rehabilitation. Prison is about punishment. It's about locking you away so that you can't continue to victimize other individuals. It's not about rehabilitating you. So most people get out of prison and they go back to the people, places, and things which they were around before they went to prison. And you start this cycle of recidivism. Now, the stats show that around 87% of people under the age of 40 recidivate. After you hit age 40, those recidivism numbers go down, and they continue to go down dramatically the older a person gets, because let's be honest, the older you get tired of this bullshit, and you decide to hang up the hat after a while. Giving $3,000 to inmates after they're released, while on paper sounds like it's a good idea. In truth, unless you're backing that up with some sort of rehabilitative classes or instruction or therapy while incarcerated, these people that you're going to give $3,000 to, they're going to use that $3,000 to help bankroll their drug habit, their next crime, what have you. So while I'm not horribly against it, I would say that we need to sit down and actually think this thing through and come up with better ideas on how to make sure that the people who are leaving prison don't go back to prison. Brian?
eBay has agreed to pay $3 million, the maximum criminal penalty possible, after employees harassed, intimidated, and stalked a Massachusetts couple in retaliation for their critical reporting of the online marketplace in 2019. eBay's harassment campaign against the couple, David and Ina Steiner, stretched for 18 days in August 2019 and was led by the company's former senior director of safety and security, Jim Baugh. It started when their CEO and chief communications officer decided to take down the Steiners after growing frustrated with their coverage of eBay in a newsletter called E-Commerce Bites.
This couple, the Steiners, they were simply reporting the truth. They weren't making up a bunch of bullshit. They weren't lying. They weren't embellishing. They weren't doing anything but saying strictly what was happening with eBay, because eBay, let's be honest, eBay does a lot of bullshit a lot of the time. So what they did was they came out with this newsletter. The head of, what was it, Brian? The head of trust and safety?
Yes.
Yeah, so the head of trust and safety, Jim Baugh, decides he's got a hard-on for this couple. Him and 7 other eBay employees launched this terrorism campaign against the Steiners. So what do? Well, they sent them a box of live roaches. They sent them a bag full of shit, literal shit. They send them funeral wreaths. They send them books on their spouses dying. They do all this stuff through the mail. Then finally, because that's not enough, they decide to hop on a plane. Yes, they do. They hop on a plane, fly to where the Steiners live, and the Steiners, just so happens, the Steiners are looking outside one day and they see these idiots circling around their car and putting a GPS tracker on their car. So the cops show up, cops call the FBI shows up, things fall apart for these 8 total eBay employees. Jim Baugh gets, I think, 54 months. The other 7 have already been sentenced from anywhere from 12 to 24 months. A couple of them have gotten probation. If you haven't noticed this yet, I'm the guy that calls out the things that need to be said. Whether that's on the bad guy's side, whether it's on the supposed good guy's side when they do bad, what have you. I'm the guy that, regardless of the consequence, I'm going to call out those who need to be called out. This idea that a company, simply because they don't like what an individual says, not lying, but telling the truth, so you're going to terrorize an individual because they've told the truth on you, there's something wrong with that. And I think this pervades society as a whole. You know, we're in a situation now, we're in a world, a society now, where a lot of people are scared to speak up, speak out, or just do the right damn thing because of fear of consequences, fear of loss of job, loss of friend, loss of contract, maybe terrorism by a company like eBay. We have to get past that. And I think the way that we get past that is we speak up even more. When just the few, the small amount of the population speaks up, it's very easy to target those individuals and shut them up. But the more people that speak up and speak out, who act, who do the right damn thing every single day, it becomes a hell of a lot harder to target those individuals. I really think that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Malicious insider threats are increasingly becoming a cause for concern among businesses in the United Arab Emirates. Employees conducting malicious online behavior is becoming a major concern for businesses across all industries. A number of factors enable people to perform malicious behavior against their employees, such as understanding their company's IT and cybersecurity infrastructure, having access to the company network, and using knowledge of their colleagues for launching social engineering attacks. Back to you, Brett.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. So here's the thing. I was actually in Riyadh about 15, 16 months ago to speak at a cybersecurity conference. And what I found out is that up until recently, the entire Middle Eastern world has not really been open as far as letting outsiders do business inside of that area. Now, why is that a problem when we're talking about cybersecurity? When you're looking at attackers, what's interesting is that I refer to myself as we, as part of that we, because I used to be one, but we look for the easiest access that gives the largest return on that criminal investment. And one of the ways that you find easy access is finding targets who have not yet experienced what the other victims in that vertical have experienced. So you take the Middle East, for example, an area of the planet where they have been closed off to much of the cybercrime that's been going on the rest of the planet. What that means is that when they start to open up, they've never seen these types of attacks before. They've read about them, they've practiced them, but they've never really been hit in the nose before. And as we all know, as Mike Tyson has said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the nose. So you get punched in the nose, you don't know what the hell to do. And that's what we're seeing in the Middle East right now is these attacks are coming in because they've never really experienced them before. And what that equates to is these attacks are largely successful. Now, I do know from being over there and speaking that they are extremely serious about cybersecurity, and they have benefits over there that they don't really have in the United States. They don't have the privacy policies, the regulations and things like that we do here that keep our hands tied a lot of the time. So we'll see how it goes, but bear that in mind, that a criminal and attacker always goes for the easiest access that gives the largest return on that criminal investment. All right, on today's Criminal Insight, we're talking about preparation. No, not Preparation H. That's what you need when they catch you and you go to prison. We're talking about preparation, like an experienced expert criminal. I don't know if you guys knew this. You may have, but I am the reason, I'm the reason that your all's tax returns are delayed every single year. That's right, I am that sumbitch. I'm the guy that created tax return identity theft. Not proud of that, but the reason I bring that up, when we're talking about not newbie criminals, not these script kiddies that are out there right now or people on Telegram and things like that, but when we're talking about really experienced criminals. For example, when I was doing tax fraud, the way that I went about that right as I was beginning, I got in all the tax codes, read all the tax books, got all the software in that I needed, QuickBooks, everything else, learned how to use everything, would test everything across the board. And then I went above and beyond what I thought was needed to be successful in doing that crime. So I would use a different IP address for every single file. I would use a different bank account for every single file, a different drop address for every single file, on a different amount for every single thing that I file. The idea being that when you're launching this initial attack, doesn't matter if it's tax fraud or what have you, whatever type of fraud that you're trying to perpetrate, that you want to make sure that you're going so much above what might be needed that everything is successful. So you're not trying to leave any holes open where you might fail. Now, once you find out that things are working fine, for example, I prepped, did everything across the board, you start cutting back at that point. What can I remove that makes things more efficient and faster for me that still equates in this crime being successful? So you start to remove things. So I found out that, hey, I didn't have to have real addresses. I didn't have to, I could use the same account a couple of different times. After a while, I didn't even need to change IP addresses. So you test everything and you start withdrawing. I got to the point where I was able to manually file one tax return every 6 minutes. I would typically file somewhere between 150, 180 tax returns a week. That would be Sunday through Wednesday. Thursday, I would plot a map of ATMs. Then Friday and Saturday, I would take a road trip and cash out those stolen tax refunds. That was typically what happened. Not typically, that is what happened. But that's the criminal insight of the day, that criminals, typically experienced ones, expert ones, we prepare through the roof. We find out who our target is or what our target is. We research them methodically. We find out every single thing we need to find out about them, and then we launch our attack. That being said, it's time to start the show. Bring in Joshua Moses, a former black hat hacker. Hey, what I'm going to do, because the dude has a really nice website. I'm going to read directly from his website about his bio. And his website is joshuamoseshacking.com. And it says, Joshua Moses is a former black hat hacker and anonymous hacktivist. As a member of Alt 2600, all about lulz, he was known as Havoc, Glitch, and Zero. He is known for the breaches at AT&T, PayPal, and U.S. Bank in the early 2000s. Then, working as a cybersecurity contractor for a handful of government agencies, he is now a technologist and an authority in identity and access management, privileged access management, hacking, social engineering, and security awareness training. So, Joshua, before we get into talking about your work with the government, the breaches of PayPal, the schemes, the $1.7 billion. The phone call that we spoke about a week ago on the phone, and you were very generous, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, but you mentioned that you had suffered from an opiate addiction. And if you don't mind, could you talk about that a little bit, about how it began, the age you started, things like that? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I hurt my back at one point, and anytime that happens, it was a herniated disc, essentially. I had some other back problems too, but that was essentially what it was. And, they prescribe you pain meds in the course of that. But the other issue that I had was that I had family members, people around me that were already addicts.
Okay.
And so, addicts are kind of known for anybody that's been done opiates. You sort of trade back and forth. You get your prescriptions, sure. People share them, they sell them, they trade them. And so naturally, whenever I was prescribed the meds, those people around me, they sort of inserted themselves into my life and then wanted to, so we sort of, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing. And it grew from there. So where a normal person would take their prescription and when it ran out, they were out, I had an endless supply at that point and kept going. And,
okay.
It didn't help. I had an addictive personality. I had addiction in my family as it was. My father, he drank quite a bit, still does.
Okay.
But yeah.
How old were you when you started having the issues?
I want to say mid-20s. I can't remember exactly the age. Maybe it was closer to 30 whenever.
Okay. You didn't have any drug problems as a teenager or anything like that? It didn't start until the mid-20s, early 30s?
Well, recreational. I was the kid that got suspended for getting high before school one time. And I got drunk one morning, and went to school and got in trouble when I was sloppy drunk and they kicked me out I was like 6 days suspension, something like that. But so I say recreational, I guess that's a kind of a pattern there, but yeah. But once I got out of high school, I didn't really mess with it until I had that injury and, that happened.
And how long were you addicted?
10 years, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever seek help during that or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a background and with I had education and technology, my background in technology. I was married and I had kids. So I was angry with myself from early on, here I've got this thing that's sucking the life out of me and money for that matter. Right. And I felt like I had so much going for me. I had the technology. I could go get a job anywhere. I'm very good at what I do. Sure. I was then. And it was obvious that I was just sort of throwing money away at that point, that I could have been spending more on my family and, just wasn't happy with the situation. So I tried several times. what I ultimately found was you just have to be ready. Like you have to be angry enough to stop.
Right. Let me ask you, 'cause I'm the guy. I was the clean cut criminal. You know, I was the naive guy. I didn't start drinking until I was 34. I've never done hard drugs. I keep threatening that once I turn 70, at that point, I'm going to develop a heroin and meth habit and ride the dragon on out, maybe hold court in the street. But I've never had that issue, and I don't know what the appeal is, and that bothers me because I kind of want to know what the appeal is. So, what does it? You were on OxyContin, right?
Mm-hmm. That was one of many. Yeah.
Okay. What does that drug feel like? Did you chew? Did you slam it? I mean, what did you do?
So OxyContins I snorted.
Okay.
So most opiates I snorted. The pills. We're talking Vicodin. We're talking Percocet, Percodan. Anything that had like oxycodone, hydrocodone, any of that. You know.
Okay.
I dabble with fentanyl. You know, I told the story on Matt Cox's podcast about chewing on fentanyl patches. They prescribed fentanyl in patches back in those days, and we would cut them up so you got a lower dosage, and suck on them to absorb it. But the appeal, most of my use was actually trying to keep from going through withdrawal again. Like it was just sustaining. At first, when you do it, you get this euphoric feeling, and it's not any sort of stretch of the imagination that whenever you first do it, it feels fantastic, and then after that, you're trying to get that same feeling over and over again, and it's just not the same anymore for you because you get used to it. You know, your body gets used to it and needs more and more and more, and so it's really hard to get that high again, especially with OxyContin and fentanyl, those kind of really hard.
So let me ask you, because and I get it. So with me, I had a tooth pulled when I got out of prison. I was at the halfway house. Up until that point, I had never had an opiate before, and I don't know what they prescribed me. I know it was an opiate. So I'm at the halfway house, and at that point, you know, they didn't allow you to keep your bottle because, hell, you're still in prison. But, you know, every 4 to 6 hours, you'd go and get one of these tablets. And I went and got one. And I remember the first time I took it, I was like, shit, this feels pretty good. And at that point in time, I was like, you know, I don't need to be using this. And I went over and just started slamming, well, not slamming, but, you know, taking massive amounts of Advil instead. And it worked fine. When you're talking about that euphoria that hits, the way it sounds is when you initially start using it, you have that euphoric feeling, but the further you go down that road of addiction, that euphoric feeling is no more. That you're basically at that point just keeping the status quo of things
pretty much
by continuing the drug.
Yeah.
So is that what leads to the different types of opiates like fentanyl, because it's so much stronger?
Like in my case, it's more of just running out of your supply. And so you can get other things. And so, you know, like my prescription would be up and someone would have Percocet. Maybe I had Vicodin. So I would be like, oh, I'll try the Percocet. And Percocet was stronger. So then I started liking Percocet. And then, you know, pretty soon somebody had OxyContin and try that. I'm like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. So though it's more expensive, then I'll stick to that. And pretty soon you've thrown so much money away, you know, but you've tried all these drugs. Yeah.
So you were addicted for a decade. What year did you beat the addiction?
It was right around 2013.
So 2013. So I remember the OxyContin years. And I remember Hazard, Kentucky. That's where I'm from. It's Hazard, Kentucky. The Hazard, Kentucky was known at one point as the OxyContin capital of the world.
I believe that, yeah.
Milligram of OxyContin sold for $1. So an 80 milligram tablet, $80. That is an expensive habit.
Wow. We paid more like 40, but yeah.
Okay. When I sold them on Shadow Crew, I got them for $22 a piece, and I resold them for $80 I was just the middleman. My question is how did you afford a habit like that?
Working in technology.
So you were able to keep the job while being addicted to the opiates as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Contracting, working as a contractor in technology pays good, pays really well. You're not paid for benefits and all that stuff as a contractor. And so during that time I was bouncing around from, job to job as a contractor.
Right.
And especially when you contract for the government, you get paid a lot. And
now, and who were you contracted with?
The agency.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, that's a good question.
I think on Matt, you said it was DIA.
Well, no, that was a job that I was introduced to. I was full time at the DIA, but
Okay.
I was actually working for an agency. I want to say NTT Federal. NTT Federal is who. Yeah.
So third party contractor going in and doing DIA
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so
Okay.
DIA, I was a DIA employee. But when I contracted, I worked like the NSA. I worked at other, the National Geospatial Intelligence, places like that. So
And how long did you do that?
Well, that entire time, I did,
Okay.
Work at other places here and there for short periods of time. I worked for a mom and pop shop in Southeast Missouri.
Okay.
Just doing MSP type work, going around fixing cable modems and putting in networks and cabling and, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Right. So you did Intel work for hell a decade. So, you're a cybersecurity expert, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of work to do. And that's an important job as well.
Yeah.
So, and when did you begin the DIA, the Intel work?
So, right around 2002 is whenever because shortly thereafter is when I did the PayPal thing. Yeah.
I got you. So, and hey, hats off to you on Intel. That I'm the guy that, they would not give me a security clearance.
Had I gotten caught, I
that.
wouldn't have gotten it either. But
I got you.
I didn't get caught till many years later. And, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure if they would have known, they would have, without a doubt. So that leads us into this PayPal thing,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you said that you were working with the Intel companies as you were doing the PayPal scheme. So talk to me about this PayPal thing.
Well, I'd been doing a lot of, at that time, I had been selling some licensing, like client access licenses from software online on eBay. You could, back then, Microsoft CALs for servers, things like that.
Right.
I came across them quite often because when you would do work like that, they were always laying around. People, believe it or not, people would throw them away, not realizing how important they were. So I knew what I could do with them, and I would take them, I would sell them on eBay. And, ultimately I ran out of licensing to sell, I guess, at some point. And I had been using PayPal as a payment source, and it was very early on. This was before eBay actually bought PayPal.
Okay, so prior to 2002, because eBay buys PayPal in 2002.
It was right around that time because they caught me. Right. Probably months, maybe a month and a half before that whole sale was made public. So maybe it happened right as it happened.
Sure.
But yeah. So I just got this idea, and I'm like, well, I'll create this. What if I create this account and I call it online? Online payment fees or something like that for PayPal. So I created the PayPal account. I created a Gmail account calling it, online payment fees or something like that at gmail.com. So you link the account to the PayPal account, right? So you got your email, then you got to link a bank account or something to it, credit card, something. And so at that time I had been using those prepaid debit cards, and I was using, I was using, I think it was Account Now was the one.
Okay.
They used MetaBank. And the reason I chose MetaBank was because you could transfer money with MetaBank offshore. So I had this idea, well, this works, I can transfer money around and I can get it offshore and start making some money. I had grand ideas. And so I link that, I get a card, and I actually, back then you get these things in the mail and you didn't have to provide any identification whatsoever. You fill out the information, you send it in.
Yeah, no KYC back then.
Right. They send you the card in a couple of weeks with a legit account behind it. It's not a bank account, but it's online bank.
I mean, it came with a routing number and an account
exactly,
number.
An account number. And so it was under assumed name. And so I linked that to the account. So now I've got an account. I can put the money, transfer back and forth and everything that I pretty much need. And so then I'm like, well, I need PayPal users. So the idea was that I'm going to send a phishing email, one which I'm pretty sure that I got the idea from you, if I'm being honest. And I'm going to send them an email that says, you've done this business through PayPal, you owe $9.99 in processing fees. And I always use $9.99 because everybody else does. Everything you pay is like $9.90, 99 cents, whatever. So I craft this email, and, it looks like it came from PayPal. It's got their letterhead, and, it looks like their website and everything has their logo. And so then I had to come up with PayPal users, and that was really the hardest part. I used what we call now Google dorking, if you're familiar with it.
I am.
You go through Google and you use basically their attributes to pull information from the search engine. So I used eBay as a source, and I just got, pulled down email addresses of PayPal accounts. Okay. So I did this for a while. I had to collect quite a few. I literally collected about 500,000 of them at one point. So that way I'm sending out a large blast of these emails. But it wasn't that easy at that point, because at that time you still couldn't, it wasn't easy. At least I didn't know a way to just send out email blasts in large quantities, right? Because I'm sending out 500,000 emails to all these people.
Right.
So I had to build an email server, my own SMTP server, which I registered to a fake domain. And, eventually I knew it would get blacklisted, but I'll send out as many of these as I can before it gets blacklisted. And, and that's ultimately what I did. I sent it out, and waited. And my plan was to wait a good 30 days. And I couldn't wait the whole 30 days. I kept wanting to log in, but I had it in the back of my head, I had to be very careful about this, because, you're crossing that line. And so I waited 27, 28 days and logged in, and there was a lot more money there than I ever expected. I was going to be happy with $15,000 or $20,000. I would have been ecstatic with $20,000. I would have been over the moon. When I logged in there, it said $1,795,323.69. I'll never forget that. And
that's a lot of money.
Well, it was a problem is what it was, because then transferring that much money to that account now card is pretty much impossible. So I had to try to find a way to move that money. And that's ultimately what got me caught, and, why I didn't get any money out of it, essentially. It was, I researched it for a long period of time, 3-4 months, tried so many different ways that I knew of, or at least I didn't try. I was working on different methods to transfer money. And ultimately I got into my own head and got scared, because naturally you transfer $1.7 million out of a PayPal account, it's going to run some red flags, right? So
it might. But I mean, the plan on paper is not bad, So you PayPal's in its infancy. They're like I spoke before with the UAE. They're not used to seeing those attacks because, hell, those attacks are brand new at that point in time. You decide that, hey, you see this and you're like, hell, everyone on eBay is using PayPal right now. Nobody's really paying attention to social engineering attacks. I'll just go and get my ass a prepaid debit card, register an email, start spamming these people, saying that they owe processing fees, $9.99 a pop, not a large dollar amount, but you send out 500,000 of them. And let's be honest, I mean, that you got a response rate of 40%.
Yeah.
That's crazy good when we're talking about a phishing attack. As you know, I mean, that's insanely good.
Yeah.
That's something that you typically don't see at all.
Right.
But you get basically a 40% response rate. You look at it and you've got 1.7 million in there and you're like, well, shit, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. What am I going to do with that?
And you did your research because, like I spoke earlier, I mean, we criminals, we are very good about making sure we've got all our ducks in a row before we start the attack. I mean, that's an impressive type of scheme.
I didn't plan for how much money I was going to get back was the problem.
But it was wildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't get the money out.
No, not a cent.
What happened?
No. Well, so I had researched so many ways. I really couldn't come up with a method that would work, without opening a bank account in my own name to transfer it, which would have been just stupid.
Sure.
So I
already had the account though.
Yeah, but if I'd have tried that, first of all, I found out later on they had a limit to how much you could transfer to them. So being able to transfer that, the most I would have been able to transfer at a time was like $5,000, and I'm sure once I had done that a couple of times, I would have pretty much got myself caught.
I can affirm that you wouldn't get much out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was more afraid of that step, although I had already gotten all those people to send me $9.99 a piece.
Sure.
Which at the time I didn't realize was just as much of a crime as, getting the money out. I thought my big crime was pulling the money out. Okay. I thought that's where I was really crossing the line. Long story short, I kept reviewing these methods and I got angry at one point and I'm going to give up. And I queued this up and was getting ready to transfer it all to that card. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And then I talked myself out of it and I walked away. Problem was I left it in a state where that money was ready to be sent. And that's where, when I walked away, it raised a red flag with PayPal and they started looking into the whole situation. Right. It wasn't long after that I got a message and they started asking me for proof of the service that I provided to get that money sent to me. Right.
Sure.
Naturally, I couldn't provide that, although I was trying to come up with some sort of something to get me out of this. And then it wasn't terribly long after that they got police involved. But again, at that time, it was very early on. And at this time, there weren't any computer laws, there weren't any criminal laws for computer crimes on the books in my area. They either didn't get the FBI involved or they didn't take it seriously. I don't know the aspect of that, what happened there.
Okay.
I know they got a hold of my local jurisdiction because the state and the county came to see me.
Okay, so state and county did show up.
They did. They showed up, county detective, and then there were some Missouri state troopers that were there. Came in my house, wanted to question me.
That's a scary moment, man.
It was. I'll never forget that because that was my first real interrogation. And, though it was very friendly because, they're like, look, we need to ask you a few questions about this. I'm sure you can straighten it out kind of thing. You know how they do it.
Right.
And I tell them what, I provide the service and everything. I'm like, well, can you prove that? I'm like, well, it's all online. And so I'm trying to tell this guy, this detective, that I did all this stuff online and it's just different. I was trying to convince him because they weren't very tech savvy. I was trying to convince him that I provide a service that really, since it's online, it doesn't really provide any proof, And he was obviously skeptical. Calls PayPal, gets them on the phone, and I can hear them going back and forth. And ultimately, he said, I hear him say, so he started to steal a bunch of money, but he didn't. And the conversation sort of progressed from there. And then from that point, he was like, well, if he didn't steal anything, then he didn't commit a crime. And so PayPal's trying to convince him of what I did because I'd committed fraud. I had sent out these phishing emails. I got all these people to send me money and everything. But in his eyes, since I didn't take the money, I wasn't committing a crime. And so at that point, it becomes a debate, which lasted for a little while, a few months. But ultimately, because I attribute it because of the lack of computer crime laws, nothing ever came of it. They returned all that money. They basically refunded it to each one of the people. And there was an email sent, I know that for a fact, to all the users saying that, somebody had fraudulently hit them up and they were just getting refunded.
So you lucked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you set up the account now, what name did you put in the panel?
James Clayton.
So it was an identity theft.
Technically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't even look
not technically, it was identity theft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And they never charged you for that or anything else from that point.
The police weren't even concerned with the account now card, any of that. They were mainly concerned about the money from PayPal.
I understand. I get it. So, and I mean, what type of stress is that to do that crime, have state troopers show up, have the local PD show up, have PayPal knowing that it's you, however they identified you, knowing that it was you, while you're working as a contractor for DIA.
For the government. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
How much stress is that?
That's pretty scary. It's not like now where everything's out there, but the internet, things were getting around and it was scary. I was terrified I was going to lose my job. And because really any type of conviction would absolutely negate the
hit you at that point in time. And you were very lucky. No convictions on anything?
No, it just went away.
Okay. Now were you ever convicted on anything or not?
Yeah, convicted. So eventually the Walgreens thing got me, yes, technically convicted. But that was the thing, Ryan, that I worked with the state on that and basically
so
got
that
myself.
Was just state charges or what?
State charges.
Okay. So never charged federally or anything like that. Okay. So you did all right with that. What was the disposition of the state charges with Walgreens?
Well, I ended up getting, SIS, suspended imposition of sentence, and basically had to do a probation. I had to agree to do some classes. I taught some internet safety courses, things like that. Okay. And basically, as long as I didn't do anything else, I was, it was basically all just dropped. Once the probation was over, it sort of goes away.
And what year was that?
2014, 2015 is when it all concluded.
Okay, so after you left DIA.
Oh yeah, long after. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Geez, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm the guy that, like I said, I did. We did a lot of shit on Shadow Crew. All right, a lot.
Yeah, I know.
We did. I had access to payroll cards. That's what we used to call them back in the day. Payroll cards. I had access to payroll cards long before Account Now come into play and everything, And can I ask you something?
Oh, sure.
Can you and I have an honest conversation.
Sure.
All right. I don't want, I do these shows, Joshua, because I'm trying to be a better person. And I want the viewers and people who take the time out to listen to me to walk away with value and to maybe apply part of this to their lives as well. Not only that, but I like the people who come in and sit down and take the time out of their day to talk to me. I like them, or I like to think that they walk away reflecting, and maybe it's helped them a little bit at the end of the day too. So I just wanted to take the time out with you to ask you if we could have an honest conversation. Sure. Okay. I've read, I visited your sites, Medium. You've written a whole lot over there. I don't know how long it takes you to write those articles, but by God, it takes me forever to turn out, 1,000, 1,500 word article. And they're good articles. So I just wanted to say that.
Thanks.
One of the things that I'm wondering about is the Account Now card, because you committed the crime before 2002, but Account Now doesn't come into business until 2004.
Well, then I have the year wrong, because I know for sure that it was Account Now.
Okay.
Yeah,
but it was before eBay bought PayPal, which was 2002.
Pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just didn't know if maybe you'd gotten that mistaken, because I listened to your podcast on your YouTube channel. You told me it was Account Now, and you were sure that it was Account Now. And
no,
on
it
your
was
YouTube channel and on mine, you says that it was before eBay bought PayPal.
Yeah, well, it's definitely Account Now. I know I use those. I remember that for a fact.
So sometime after 2004.
I guess it would have to be if they didn't. But,
I mean, they literally, I've got the page pulled up here. They literally did not come into business until 2004. I looked it up on the Better Business Bureau site before that. And I took the time out, and I'm not trying to attack. All right. The thing is that I don't think that you're being honest with me. All right. And it's not really me thinking that you're not being honest with me. I know you're not. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think you're mistaken. But
well, Alabama is a one-party state. Missouri is a one-party state. You know what that means?
Not really, no.
It means that phone calls can be recorded with only one person's permission on the call.
Okay.
All right. So when you and I spoke on the phone the other day, you said that you had regained your security clearance after losing it. All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Okay.
Because an automatic disqualification is an addiction to an illicit substance. So how can you regain a security clearance after admitting that you have been addicted to opiates?
Well, I didn't say I admitted to them that I had been addicted to opiates.
On our phone call, you did. I've got it pulled up right now. I can play part of that clip.
I said that I admitted to them that I.
Yeah, man, you said you had to sit down on the background check when you went to. You said that your security clearance had expired.
No. I told them the things that I had done, like hacking and.
So you didn't tell them anything about
drugs? No, honestly, I did not.
Okay. Nope. Did you tell them about the bad check convictions while you were working at DIA?
They knew
because
about
I pulled up your criminal record.
Yeah, they knew about that kind of stuff.
You told me you hadn't had a conviction until the Walgreens thing. You just said that not 5-10 minutes ago.
Well, I don't. When we're talking about that, I'm talking about computer crime related stuff. Yeah, I mean, I had petty theft things. Before I got into computers and technology, I wasn't the most honest person, man. I stole. No, I got you.
And I was like that too, man. So 95 check, 98 check,
the bouncing
2001
checks,
check.
Those weren't. I wasn't trying to like commit fraud.
2012, we've got a Class C felony.
That's the one. That's the Walgreens.
2012.
Okay, yeah. So that's
while you had security clearance.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that they let you keep security clearance with all of the bad checks and with a conviction of a Class C felony.
No, I told you on the phone was that I lost it after a period of time of inaction. So when that happened, I lost my job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got caught, got in trouble, lost my job. Basically what happened was I went to jail for a short period of time, lost my job because I was in jail trying to work that out. Okay.
Okay.
And then, so I lost a job and then I'm out of a job for a period of time. And the security clearance I lose because I'm inactive. Right.
Okay.
And so that's that time. When I talk, man, I'm not good with years because the opiate addiction, I used Oxycontins and Xanax, which they're things that I just don't remember. So as far as years, I hate whenever you ask me to pin down years because I don't remember a lot of the exact time frames.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. If it seems like I am not being truthful because of that, that could be why.
I mean, it does seem that way. And that's why I want to have a conversation with you. All right.
No problem.
Because like you take the PayPal thing, you said that after PayPal identified you, that the cops show up 3 days later and PayPal did not call the feds.
No, they did not. No, it was.
Here's what I know. Here's what I know. And I know this. All right. I know that attempted fraud in federal crime is the exact same penalty as the actual fraud. So an attempted heist of $1.79 million is the exact same as stealing $1.79 million. You have identity theft added onto that. Back then it was aggravated identity theft because that came into play right along that same time too. So that's an added 2 years to your prison sentence. I also know that by that point in time, we had eaten PayPal alive. All right. For a fact, I know that because there's a site that pops up in the year right at the end of the year 2000. And that site is called PayPalSucks.com. That site was created because PayPal instituted draconian security measures for an unverified account. What would happen is you've got an unverified account, you receive $1,500 worth of sales, whatever the hell is going on, you get $1,500 worth of PayPal dollars. PayPal locks the account down until you verify that account.
That's actually how they
did that with everybody across the board. And that's why you have a site like PayPal Sucks that pops up. Okay.
Yeah.
That site pops up in the year 2000.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what we need to talk about here, because you're telling me that PayPal by that point in time, you said it was after 2002. So it has to be after 2004 because you were insistent that it was the account now card that was there that was being used. PayPal was well versed in fraud by 2004. And I know for a fact, because even today I get to work with PayPal, PayPal was absolutely contacting federal authorities, and they would have contacted federal authorities for a $1.79 million heist.
Yeah, I can't answer to that. I don't know.
I can.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Okay.
Clearly, you're wanting to call me out on this.
I am calling you out.
Okay,
like the medium thing, man. And this is what's irking me a little bit today.
The medium thing?
Yeah, your medium page.
What's wrong?
Well, here's the thing. You wrote an article titled, it's from November 29th, 2023. The title of the article is How to Protect Your Aging Parents Against Scams. It's a 9-minute read. It's a good article. It is. It's a good article.
Okay.
The problem with that is where you said you wrote it, you really didn't. Cameron Huddleston wrote it. For getcareful.com, he wrote it May 19th, 2023, word for word.
Actually, I used AI partly with that.
Well, I mean, you see what we're getting at here. That's plagiarism.
Okay.
That's not okay.
I
It's
use
plagiarism.
ChatGPT, in all honesty, to help write that.
Okay. So, and that's not the only article that happens with, right?
Did I use ChatGPT? No, it's not the
That's
only
got
article.
plagiarized stuff in it.
You're telling me there's more?
There is. There is. The other, I mean, I can go through it. I pulled that up 5 minutes before we got on, man. So my question is what's going on, dude? I mean, I pulled up your LinkedIn file. I read the where you went to MIT. You know, you got the certificate from MIT. I pulled that up, and for a man who is a
That's
cybersecurity
a certificate course.
I know. I've spoken at that school of business before.
Okay.
For a man who is well versed in cybersecurity, I'm wondering why you have to take a class that teaches you the correct verbiage to use with CISOs, because that's what that class does.
Is it? Yeah, cybersecurity for managers. It was.
Yeah, but you should already know that language before you take the class.
No, that class is for preparing to be a CISO. Essentially, that's what it is.
Okay, so it says the language and vocabulary to support informed conversations with your CISO, your CTO, and other technology leaders. The thing is as you know, shit, man, I still don't have that language. You know, I still use the criminal verbiage on things like that. So I'm wondering, you know, with you working DIA for over a decade.
Again, I didn't say that I worked DIA that entire time. I worked DIA for a couple years. Then I moved on to other. You told me you worked
NSA and CIA.
I worked contract jobs for government agencies, off and on.
Okay. And you told me that on the phone, you told me that you got in trouble, and because of the work that you'd done with these intelligence agencies, that the charges magically went away, that you Harry Pottered them out.
No,
Please play that clip.
Yeah, please play that clip, because you're misconstruing what I said.
And, well, I got charged and everything, convicted.
Right.
But I, you know, like in a lot of situations, I had actually also worked with the CIA and NSA contracting.
Okay.
So I had some clout to use, you know, and I agreed to do some more government work, and the charges magically went away.
Sure.
They're still on, depending on what kind of background check you do on me, you can find it. Sometimes you can't, sometimes you can.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
So you can stop, Brian. So, I mean, you said the charges magically went away, and I just repeated what you said, and you said, no, you didn't say that.
So, okay, you're still taking this out of context. It's like
I'm not.
It's the charges that you.
I want an honest conversation. What's going on?
I'm being honest with you. This is the situation with Walgreens that I said I got in trouble for. And
why
like
isn't
I
that
said,
showing up at all on your criminal record? It doesn't show up
at all?
At all? At all? I pulled your criminal record today.
Wow.
I got it right in front of me. I got your criminal record right here.
You give me a second?
You like to speed. I like to speed too.
You give me a second, see if I can prove it to you? Okay. Bear with me a second.
Okay.
5 minutes later.
So I worked with them to get the probation, to get the SIS probation and get it basically so it would, once I finished the probation, I wouldn't, you know, it'd be off my record, because I knew at that point I wasn't going to get a job.
Sure.
That's what got me clean, essentially.
Okay.
There we go.
Prosecutor and Attorney Marvin, or however you say that name.
Don't remember the prosecuting attorney's name.
But I mean, you see what I'm getting at, man. I mean, it's like you
I see what you're trying to get at.
A lot of stuff, but you ain't shown me nothing.
I see what you're trying to get at, yeah. Which why didn't you, if you were, why call me out on the air if you're trying to, okay, this is what you do, isn't it?
No, it's not really what I do. I did this. The thing is that I don't want this channel to be known as the Brett Johnson Gotcha channel. All right. Now I can turn it into that on a dime. I want to have a conversation with you because I want to know what the hell you're doing saying this stuff that ain't right. You know, I watched Unforgiven the other night, and there's that scene where Gene Hackman is beating Morgan Freeman.
And when their lies ain't the same as your lies, well, I ain't gonna hurt no woman. I'm gonna hurt you.
And, you know, the things that you told me on the phone don't correspond to the things that you said on your podcast and do not correspond to the things that you said on Matt Cox's podcast. And I think the problem is that you've not sat down and got your story together.
I'm not sure. What are you talking about? They don't coincide with what I said on Matt Cox's podcast.
You said either on your podcast or on Matt Cox's show that you had never been arrested. After you told me that you had been arrested and it went to probation. All right.
Yeah.
You said that.
So here's the thing.
So you had been arrested. You told me on my show, and I was very clear, you'd never been arrested on anything. And you said, no, never been arrested except for the Walgreens stuff. Yet I'm sitting here with your criminal record about check fraud that you were convicted of while working as a contractor for DIA. At least that's what you say. You know as well as I do, DIA, NSA, CIA, DNI, all those other organizations, they do not. You get convicted of something, you are out. Yet
it's
you
not
say
check
you
fraud.
continued to work with them after being convicted of check fraud. No.
It's not check fraud.
I know that. It's not?
No,
Bad checks?
It was bad checks, bouncing a couple checks.
And that's not fraud?
It wasn't considered fraud. No, it's considered. I've
done that before. They called it fraud when I did it.
When you bounced one or two checks?
Oh yeah, I bounced one or two or four or five or more than that.
There's a difference between one or two here and there. And
okay,
this is whenever I was long time ago. I wasn't making as much money as I do now. And
right.
And actually, in all honesty, the one you're talking about, I was married and I was in a different country and I had a wife that was writing checks. I was writing checks on the same account. You're kind of making more of that.
So the check fraud was in a different country. That's why you.
No, I'm saying I was in a different place. She was in a different place. We were writing checks on the same account, not communicating well with that. There was a couple checks that bounced. It's not like fraud, but and they were taken care of.
I mean, if you have worked for DIA, you know how that background check goes.
Actually,
right?
I was already working there, and when that happens, what happens is you get a reprimand. There's a process where you go through a letter of counseling and you go through a letter of reprimand, and then you get in real trouble. And I actually went through the letter of counseling, letter of reprimand when those things happened. Okay. But that, like I said, it's just a couple checks, but
just a couple checks,
a few.
And you let it expire, your security clearance expire.
Yeah.
And you regained it later.
You're talking about different sections of period of time here. Mm-hmm. DIA was early 2000s. Okay. The checks were back in back right around that time or before. I might have been still in the military when some of those checks were written. But so then you talk about you're saying the arrests for those, right? So I didn't bring those up because they weren't pertinent to the IT related stuff, cybersecurity. You're right. I did get arrested for bad checks, but to me, I was more concerned with talking about the cybersecurity, the hacking when I got into that stuff. That's what the conversation was about. So when you ask me if I'd ever been arrested, I'm talking about that. Anything related to IT.
Not talking about any other arrests, just the
You know, if you want to, if you really want to
arrest.
check, I was arrested for speeding over 100 miles an hour.
I know, I got it. I got it.
Right.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I said a few minutes ago, you like to speed like I like to speed. I got your arrest record,
yeah,
man.
Yeah. So if you want to be on, you know, if we're going to talk about all that, sure. Yeah, that did happen. It sure did.
Well, I just find it odd that they would let you keep your security clearance while all that shit's going on.
Well, they don't always know. So
they know when a conviction pops up.
Yes,
because you don't just go through that one background check at the beginning of the hire. Depending on the job, it's going to be 3, 5, 7s.
We're talking about bounce checks versus a fraud. You're making more of it. I got reprimanded. I did at work. I didn't lose my job over the bad checks. But and in fact, what they do is you get, like I said, you get the letter of counseling, you get the letter of reprimand, and then they have somebody, it's a financial counselor. So it's what's called OPR, Office of Professional Responsibility, which is like their HR. And so they assign somebody who basically helps you manage your money to make sure you don't do it again. Right. Okay. So that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, but it expired sometime after 2013.
Yes.
And you regained it after that.
I did. Yeah.
After being convicted of a Class C felony.
Because, as we said, the conviction, once you finish the probation on an SIS, it falls off your record and it's harder to see.
It didn't fall off your record. I pulled it up today.
I thought you just said you couldn't find it.
Oh, no, dude. I've got your Class C felony right here.
Well, just a minute ago, you said you couldn't see any record of it.
Over 500, less than 25,000?
Yeah.
A sentence suspended. It doesn't say probation.
That's what they do. Suspended imposition of sentence. So you get.
So that's the Walgreens breach.
Yes. So you get probation with a backup of whatever the sentence is, right?
That's a Walgreens breach in 2012.
The breach happened earlier. It was like 2010, but the conviction went through. It takes a while, right? You know that.
Sure. So, and this is what I'm wondering. So 2010 was a breach. While you've still got security clearance, the security clearance didn't end until around 2013.
About right. Yeah. Because I had lost my job.
They let you keep security clearance for 3 more years?
Until the conviction is final. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to
understand I was contracting. And so
I get it.
The agency didn't get the information that fast. I didn't report it naturally. I wanted to stay working as long as I could. It's, you want to call it a flaw in the system? I don't know, but it had to have been a flaw.
I mean, it had to be because, the work that I've done, if I just get stopped by a cop, it flags in the system and notifies motherfucker.
These days, I would believe that would happen right now, that they would know immediately. But I thought you said you couldn't find my Walgreens thing.
Oh, no, it doesn't say Walgreens. It says over 500, less than 25,000.
Oh, yeah. Again, they
conviction.
They didn't classify it as computer crimes. So it was.
But you were absolutely guilty of identity theft from what you've said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were laws on the books as early as 2002 for those types of crimes.
Yeah, I can't answer to why I wasn't charged with that. I don't know. Okay. I really can't.
Okay. And the Chat GPT is ones who wrote the articles on Medium.
Well, I use Chat GPT, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I do it every time. It, like you said, how many words you come up with those articles, 2,000-3,000 words, and that stuff takes time. I work a full-time job now, and I'm trying to, I wrote 2 books actually that I'm trying to get out there. That was the point of all this. Okay. You asked me what I'm trying to do here. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put myself out and, prove that I'm an expert in cybersecurity, because in the past 10 years since all that happened, I have done the right thing. I've been working the way I should be. I've been working in, cybersecurity and working hard at it.
Okay.
And I know what I'm doing, I'm very good at it.
Okay. But you understand what I'm getting at here. I mean, it's.
I understand you're picking
odd.
a lot of it apart, man.
I am.
You are.
I am because there's so much of it that didn't make sense. I'm the guy that, I don't know if you knew this or not, but you probably didn't. I'm the first guy that ever used prepaid debit cards in a cybercrime environment.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that your group
Shadow Crew
ones...
Shadow Crew is the group that causes not only PayPal but eBay to institute security.
I know you guys are where I got the idea to fish. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
We're the group that started that for profit. And there's a lot of stuff that you were saying that just didn't make sense. You talked about the setting up the account now, and it didn't come into business until after you said that you had committed the crime.
Yeah. So I for sure used account now. I could have time frame wrong there again. When it comes to the addiction, that like those time frames, we're talking 20 years ago,
I got you.
Except for what's on paper with the charges, I couldn't tell you,
Right.
time frames.
And I don't, and here's the thing, Joshua, I don't want to be the guy that picks or calls people out. I don't want to be that guy. I had fun with it a few weeks ago because this son of a bitch was victimizing senior citizens on a timeshare fraud. I don't want to be that guy with you, man. I understand that you have and you're battling an addiction. I do not believe for a second it was as easy to get over as you say it was, because while I've not been addicted, well, you said that on another show, but while I have not suffered from addiction, my first cousin, has been addicted to opiates for over 30 years. Two of my childhood friends, brothers, one of them overdosed on OxyContin and cocaine at Thanksgiving. The other brother died the following Christmas using the exact same substances. So I've seen these addictions. I know what this is. I grew up in Hazard, Kentucky, the capital of that addiction. I know that you've got problems with that. I don't want to be the guy that's bringing more heartache into you, but I do want to just be honest about things. I can't blame you, dude, for sitting there and trying to come up and do cybersecurity and everything else like that, but you can't come in and say stuff like you regained your security clearance after you lost it and after you got convicted and after you had an addiction, and because nobody that's in security that has ever been interviewed is ever going to buy that.
It happened.
I'm just being honest with you on this. All right.
Well, I can be honest with you
because
too.
the background check, they not only crawl up your ass, they crawl up your family's ass. As a matter of fact, if your family's been convicted of a crime, a family member, you're probably not going to get that goddamn clearance.
I can tell you that I was denied at one time just a year before I was given it back. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure was.
But you see what I'm saying, though, man. There's a lot of conflicting stuff that's going on there, and it may
not
just
really.
Be smoke with no fire.
You're picking a lot of things apart, and
it's very easy to pick it.
Okay. Well, if I was lying to you, I would have got up and left here. I don't.
Well, I would have asked you not to, because at that point, it's just me up here showing everything that's not correct, and no one to defend themselves.
Well, what's the point in putting this out there then? If this is going to be an episode.
The point is I would like you to come up and say, hey, what, man? I'm just trying to get a goddamn job. I'm just trying to come up because I got 2 friggin' kids and I'm trying to support them and I'm trying to make sure they're fed every goddamn day. So yes, I copied somebody's fucking article on Medium.
Well,
yes, I fudged a little bit on the security clearances. Yes, I did that. But you know what? I'm really a good guy at the end of the day, and I would really like to do the right thing. I just need a step up. That's what I was kind of hoping would happen.
So I didn't plagiarize anyone's article.
You did. I've used ChatGPT. You did.
Okay. If that's what you want to say, fine.
ChatGPT is not going to spit out a word for word article. It ain't going to happen. It's word for word, dude. It's word for word.
Can you send me the
shit? I can show you right now. All right, hold on just a second here.
This is really crazy because I actually, the reason why I left some of the stuff out with Matt Cox was because this was hard for me to come out and actually say some of these things because where I work, the places I do business with now don't know this stuff. Okay.
Okay.
So like the hacking, I've been nervous putting this out there because it's what I left behind, the addiction, all that stuff. And I didn't.
Joshua, by 2010, every law enforcement agency on the planet, local, state, federal, have laws on the books concerning computer crime. Everyone. Your conviction does not mention anything at all about computer crime. There's the article, by the way. You'll notice the first paragraph exactly the same. My thing is I'm kind of I'm not kind of. I guess I need to give myself more credit than that. I am the gatekeeper when it comes to criminals coming into cybersecurity. That's a fact. Because
meaning, I don't understand what you're.
Well, meaning I was top of the heap on the criminal side, and these days I'm right by God at top of the heap on the good guy side when it comes to knowledge and getting things out there as far as cybersecurity goes. When someone comes into the playing field and they say that they have done this, especially when it was back in my day, I'm often the guy that people reach out to make sure that person is vetted, to make sure that they're not bullshitting, to make sure that what they're saying is true and accurate. All right. So when you came to me, what raised my hackles was that statement where you said that you got your security clearance back, because that was something that really got my attention. And for you, if you were to go out in public and say that kind of stuff, it's something that people would immediately throw up a barrier on. All right. From there, it was simply, I was just doing my due diligence of watching your shows. So you started talking about the PayPal attack, and I'm sitting there going, because again, I'm the first guy that ever used prepaid debit cards in a criminal environment. And I know that when those things first came out, you didn't get those emails saying, sign up. And you didn't get snail mail saying prepaid debit card. They weren't even called prepaid debit cards. They were called payroll cards. It wasn't until around 2004 that they're called prepaid debit cards at that point in time. They get rid of the payroll nomenclature because they start to understand that 35% of the American public are unbanked, and that becomes their new market. Before that, it had been basically targeted toward Hispanics. All right. So that started to raise more questions at that point in time. Today, I was just, right before it came on, I was like, oh, I didn't know he had a Medium. So I was going through that, and I was like, man, these goddamn things are written pretty well. So I was like, just on a whim, I put in the first paragraph of a couple of the articles, and it spit out that, hey, they're not your articles. They're copy and pasted from other places. All that together is the indication, and I don't think that you're maliciously fraudulent. I think that you're just trying to get a step up in order to make some ends meet. is what I think. All right. And I was hoping that we could come on and, hey, you could see that, hey, man, this guy.
Ultimately, isn't that what it's all
here.
about, though? I mean,
well, it is, but if you are putting yourself forth as being this guy, it's important at the same time that you're truthful. Me and other people in the cybersecurity industry are much more likely to help someone and make sure someone gets that leg up when they're honest instead of not being honest. See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but
okay.
Clearly, this
did not go the way we thought it'd go.
Clearly, yeah.
And the thing is the questions that I asked you throughout the entire interview, I already knew the answers to as I was asking them.
I don't think you actually know the truth. You've really picked it apart. And
I have.
It's
because
way out of context.
Because, as I said, we prepare for everything.
Yeah, I guess I should have been completely forthcoming about, being arrested for checks and, but like I said, since it didn't pertain to the cybersecurity aspect, which is what the focus is,
you just didn't think it mattered.
I didn't. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think to talk about it. We're here.
So it's still It's still 1.79 million on PayPal.
$1,795,323.69.
Okay. 1.79 million on PayPal. It's still the AT&T breach, the US Bank breach, the Walgreens breach.
Yeah, we didn't even get into those.
No, it's still the worked for security agencies while these convictions took place and then regained it afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're wanting me to say something?
No, I'm just asking if that's what it is. I'm just saying that maybe I'm wrong. All right.
Well, you kind of are in a way. Like I said, after that charge and getting the the probation, as long as what SIS is here, you get probation and you finish the probation. As long as you don't offend again, then you don't go to prison, like you guys did, which I was amazingly fortunate to not have to do. And when that happened, it basically falls off the books. Like for instance, if I did like a fingerprint, record check, then they will find it.
Dude, I pulled up your criminal record through Intellius, $24 today.
Right. So that's going to pull off of CaseNet, which is the Missouri case search, which actually I was looking for that when I asked you to give me a minute earlier.
Yeah, my dumb ass, because, what would have happened is, the feds would have came in, you'd have got a U.S. Marshal number, and you went from there, especially if you're working with, DIA to work your time off. That would happen. So my dumb ass spent 2 days trying to find you on Pacer. You ain't on Pacer because you were never federal.
Right. I wasn't. And again, DIA, that was a long time ago, and I didn't work with the DIA to get that taken off there. I finished probation and I worked with them, giving them information. I had to provide classes. I had to do internet security awareness training and stuff like that. And that's how you provide all this, collateral for, and showing that you did what you're supposed to do. You also have to pay off the debt that they decide that right? So
sure.
There was an amount that I had to pay. And so I had to pay the restitution. I paid that off. And so it's pay the restitution, it's the probation, you fulfill your probation, and then it's suspended imposition of sentence, or no, I'm thinking, I can't remember what they call it now. But anyway, Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you?
Yeah. I
Okay.
know what it is.
So it basically
All right.
falls off your record. And
Well, look, Joshua, man, I don't want to pick on you, man. I want to wish you well. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll let you know when this show goes out and everything. But I truly wish you well, and I hope that
I understand why you
your,
didn't take my phone call now. Okay.
I wasn't aware of when you called, man. I told you yesterday you could have called me, and I would have been more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
All right. But I'll let you know when the show airs, and I hope that you're good, and your children are good, and that you've beaten those demons of addiction as well.
Well, I have a long time ago. Yeah.
All right, my friend. All right. Have a good day, sir. That was Joshua Moses. Here's the thing. I said that I do not want this show to be the gotcha show. So I called out Bill O'Hanlon, as my viewers know, and I had a pretty goddamn fun time doing that. So I spoke to Joshua Moses, and he raised some red flags, on that phone call, that 8-minute phone call, which I recorded because since the Shark Tank people started to fuck with me from episode 1 of Criminal Thoughts, I've been recording my calls. That way I can use it to prosecute a motherfucker if I need to do that. Well, Joshua talks to him, and he says these things that just don't make sense to people who should know what's going on. So I decided to basically crawl up his ass a little bit and find out, what I could find out. And the stuff was there. Initially I wanted to the initial thing was, we'll do a gotcha episode. We'll get his ass really good. We will. As I thought about it, I was like, I don't want this show to be that. I don't want this show to be the gotcha thing. It makes for good viewing, but I don't want it to be the gotcha thing. I would like people to walk away with some value and being a better individual at the end of the day. And I had this dumbass thought that, hey, you know what? Ask him if we can have an honest conversation. That'll clue him in that something's wrong. Ask him about that. And then instead of just coming out, bam, 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 which I did that too a little bit, but I could have done a hell of a lot worse. Instead of coming out, hammering, just start mentioning stuff like, hey, man, and even give him the ounces as the ways there. I don't know if he's beaten his addiction. I hope he has. I don't think that he was very truthful with me. And I hope that he can reflect on this and perhaps be truthful with himself and others at the end of the day. I insist, one of the things I insist on with my shows, both the Brett Johnson Show and Criminal Thoughts, is honesty. I was a liar for years. It's very easy for me to identify one because, hey, it takes one to know one. But I was a liar for years, and I will not tolerate someone feeding me a line of bullshit. So that's why I did that. And it was my hope that, hey, maybe we could have a good conversation. Maybe, you'll take that little fishing line I threw out there saying, hey, man, maybe it's because, you just want a leg up and you want a job and able to do something and able to advance in life. And you've got family there and you're, by God, wanting to take care of them. But that wasn't the way the conversation went. I'm not sure what value this is going to have for my viewers other than some entertainment. But I would say to look at this and be aware. For example, if you go to his website, he's a very clean-cut individual. Just because someone looks the part, just because someone has a nice resume, does not mean that person is everything that they claim to be. It's very important. I talk about this frequently. It's very important. I believe in not being paranoid. I believe in trusting, but verifying. I am not the guy. My name is not Matt Cox. Matt Cox talks to a shit ton of people. He doesn't have time to verify everything. I'm going to verify who I'm talking to. And typically it's not very hard. Typically I'll get somebody on the phone and being a former criminal and formerly in prison, I know if you're bullshitting or not. It's not rocket science. I think that's maybe the takeaway, what I mentioned before of always verify who you're looking at. We get a lot of pig butchering schemes, a lot of catfishing, things like that. And it's simply because people take a lot of things at face value. It's important not to do that. You don't have to be paranoid, but don't take things at face value either. All right, my name is Brett Johnson. This is the Criminal Thoughts Show, where we talk about the criminal mindset. We talk about some past crimes. Matter of fact, I recorded an episode about my great uncle, Roy Campbell. It's an unsolved murder. It's been on Dateline, all these other things. Recorded an episode. I think that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. I enjoyed doing that episode because I got to walk through and do these little characters about how that murder would have taken place. And I think I'm going to continue to do some episodes like that. Look at some unsolved cases, talk to some people about that, and hypothesize about some of the stuff that may have happened and how it would have happened, and also apply the thinking of the criminal as they're committing those specific types of crimes. I think that's beneficial at the end of the day. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to bring people in. Hopefully future guests will learn to look up who the hell they're talking to before they come on the show, and not to come with a line of bullshit. That is the hope. I think we will get there. I think that it will finally, somebody will say, hey, you're going on Brett Johnson's show? Don't bullshit with him. He knows what he's talking about. Don't bullshit with him. So hopefully we'll get there. We'll see. We're going to close it out. My name is Brett Johnson. This is Criminal Thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. How do we close it out? Same way we close out the Brett Johnson Show. Stay safe, stay secure, stay vigilant. Always stay vigilant. At the end of the day, though, just do the right damn thing. My name is Brett Johnson. I thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Until next time.